So thank you so much for joining me today, Nicola, for the Legacy Life podcast. And in this episode, we're talking about baby loss because it's Baby Loss Awareness Week this week in the UK. And on Friday, there is the Wave of Light, the Lights of Love event. That is a global event, that has families light a candle for their loved ones, for their babies right across the globe. So we're going to have a chat about that. And thank you so much for coming to let us know what your organization, your charity is doing to support bereaved families as well. So very welcome here today.
Oh, it's just so lovely that you've invited me to chat. I'm very proud of what we're doing as an organisation. It's a really, really important week for everybody around the UK, but the world. But we're 100 baby loss charities in the alliance, all doing work, including ourselves. We're very busy, and I'm bereaved, so it touches that part of me too. So it's a great opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming and talking today. Now, as my podcast is about legacy, and one of the reasons I'm here, like you, is because I am a bereaved parent as well, and I know you are, and for me, my parenting journey started that way. So my first child was stillborn.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you. And so, and he touched our lives in a very deep way, and we did a lot of things, like, as I know you have. I know you're involved with this organization that you would not be involved with if you hadn't had the experience you had. And it was the same for me when our son Buena was stillborn. We, needed help. We needed support through that. And SANS in Leeds was the place that really helped us with that. And we got very involved with the organisation.
Wonderful.
And yeah. And I became a befriender and ended up being the chair of the organisation. And so, it really grew. And my husband and I did some things, when something like this happens, often we want something good to come, to go through that experience. For me, I've always been somebody who's quite positive and who looks for the silver lining, who looks for the good that can come from difficult and challenging experiences. And one of the things we did was we got some funding and did a whole story capture project with a poet and a writer to help families share their stories and process their stories through writing. So that was one of the things that we did. And I'm really reminded of that as I've got a book coming out next month that is all about awakening legacy. So this sense of legacy, there's a legacy from our son's life, his short life has created this powerful legacy. And I'm sure there's a similar story for you with you being part of this organization, which I'd love to hear about. So tell me a bit about your journey to becoming part of this organization.
So yeah, just like you, lives are changed by events that occur, but I think the loss of a baby is a very life-altering event. It's probably one of the most profound things you can ever experience. So he was my second son, and I knew he would be poorly. He had a condition called exomphalos, and we were prepared for stays in hospital and prepared for operations, but we weren't prepared for his death. As no parent is. You don't grow up ever expecting to have a conversation around your child or baby dying and to have to prepare for how that might impact you both at quite a young age. So we were thrown into that like all other families. It comes at different points, doesn't it? From there's no heartbeat, or I'm sorry to tell you, or whatever the circumstance. So for ours, we were told there was nothing further they could do. We'd have to switch his machine off and hold him when he died. And for me, it changed my life, obviously, and I love how you talk about that legacy. I think we all live, it's why we live, is to what's our purpose, who are we going to be, and who are we going to touch, and what's somebody going to tell about our story. We're all storytellers, but I think bereaved parents are fabulous storytellers because they have a very, very important story to tell, because that little person can't tell their story, so we tell it on their behalf, and we live their life out through the gifts that they left behind, I suppose. And so for my Theo, he left many gifts, and I suppose one of them was we were fortunate to have another baby. So I had a son before, and then Theo, and I had a son after, so we've been blessed to have 3 boys. But as soon as my last son arrived, I knew very quickly that I had to do more around that experience, and I started to build how I was going to do that. So contacted the local hospital and set up a support group, and through listening to bereaved parents and feeding that back to the hospital, so began this cycle of improvement in care and listening and passing on. So that was 10 years ago. And then I stumbled across Sans Lodians, as it was at the time. So it's a separate charity from Sans. It evolved from the same in the 70s as the organisations all grew. But they'd registered as their own because of the service that they provide. So they have counselling attached. And so I linked in with them, and then became a volunteer like you. I trained as a befriender and befriend individual families whilst teaching. So I was a teacher before, and just became more and more involved, to the point that then in 2014 I was offered the role of the chief exec at the charity, and was able to then take on essentially the whole charity and how I wanted to shape it. And so, wow, if we're talking about legacies, this little person that was here 3 weeks and met very few people in the outside world, is the reason that we're chatting today, and the reason that we're able to provide what we can and all that we do in the charity. And it is very unique what we offer, but it's how I live with him. It is his life with me, so I can live with my living children in a different way, but I can live every day with Theo. And I suppose his love and our love is essentially that compassion, and being able to sit with another and say, oh, I remember that, or yes, I hear you. That's really his voice, isn't it? So.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. That legacy, of your son Theo and my son Buana, and their voice in a way living on, or their essence coming through, in the work that we do, and the way we live our lives as well. What I've found for me as well as a parent, having had that experience of loss, wanting to be there for my children has been something really strong for me. Like, I've wanted to drink in every moment of their lives, and that again is something that I think comes from having had that experience, and knowing that you can't take it for granted that they're here with you,
and it's part of the gifts, isn't it?
It is,
because we're changed. How are we changed? And one of them is we feel pain and other people's pain, so we can bring real empathy, and it's the purest form of empathy to the table, to sit with another and say, I don't think you can ever say I understand, but you can as much as anyone can. But I think, how you live your life after, isn't it? It's perspective taking. I'm really quick, as I'm sure you are, Sarah, perspective taking super fast. So even when the pandemic broke, it's like, okay, let's see, we've survived worse. Okay, so what have we got? I've got my children in the house. I've got my family next to me. Okay, well, we can do this. That's okay. They're safe. They're all right. And I think, again, it's back to those sons and what they've taught us, and what they continue to help us with, and how we live our lives. I think it's very quick to go, we've survived worse. And I live my whole life like that. It's like this foundation, isn't it, of going, I don't know if there's anything that could be harder than surviving that. For me, some people might disagree, but for me, I've lost my parents since him, and boy, that was hard, and a hard journey. Looked after my mum with cancer here in my home, and she stayed here till she died.
Wow.
And that was hard, but my recovery was different. My son just totally broke me open. And I had to relearn a lot again, where I think when an adult dies, as devastating as it is, there is so many other aspects that are so different. The shared stories and the memories and the pictures and the friends and the family, and that really holds you up. You realise that traditions of grief and funeral traditions and all the other elements of loss, they're there for a reason, because stories are better shared together, and so is grief.
Yeah.
And you realise that with a loss of somebody under you, that's different, isn't it? Okay.
Yeah, for sure. For me at the time, I hadn't lost any of my parents. My father died, my stepfather died last year. And just at the beginning of the pandemic.
Oh, it's very hard.
And I was able to go to his funeral literally just before the whole country locked down. His funeral was literally just a few days before, and that just happened. And then, our world changed, didn't it?
Yeah.
But it's one of the gifts that I talk about, from my son as well, is this understanding of what grief is. Like, I had no idea about it before. I didn't understand it, and I could empathize to a certain degree, but I didn't get it. And then I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. Now I understand that. And and like you say, it's not the same with a baby as it is with an adult either,
different again, isn't it? And then COVID has made it so hard for families because of me grieving in isolation. And so I think you were asking a bit about what the charity does, and we decided.
I was going to ask you about the services you have, actually.
So we decided not to furlough any staff, which was not what we were seeing everywhere else, but I felt really passionate that there was a big enough crisis and families were still going to continue to lose babies, and what they actually needed was a steady ship. They needed like a Noah's Ark, somewhere that they could feel safe, someone would keep them dry, and from the storm. And so I suppose, back if we're going with sea analogies, I often have little stories and visuals. We were a bit of a lighthouse. So I think we shone a bright light. So we've been providing specialist baby loss counselling for over 25 years now. So we're very unique in what we've done, and ahead of the curve, I suppose, in our bereavement supports. We've always recognised that the loss of a baby is a traumatic event in someone's life, but we've also been very aware of the effects of trauma. So we're a trauma-informed charity, so we've done much work on PTSD and complex PTSD, and we've definitely seen an increase, sadly, in families during COVID. So often people will say, well, we're not seeing trauma, but it's not, trauma's not seen, it's heard. So you have to listen into trauma, don't you? You have to listen in. So hearing more flashbacks and panic attacks and not sleeping and not eating so well, and real impact on life. So we provided 1,050 counselling sessions last year. Wow. 282 of those were for men. So just fabulous to be there. And we saw a 54% increase in our befriending. So our befrienders are paid staff that are there every day. And we have 4 befrienders, and so they're able to reach out, and it provides that continuity of care. They're able to, they have the one befriender who will touch base with them, whether it's weekly, fortnightly, and it can be years of contact. And they can journey with them, so into another pregnancy perhaps. Not everybody has another baby, but many do. And we have pregnancy support as well. So we have a group in the Zoom group for families. So everything was transferred online. So we did Zoom groups for all our support services. So I think we have around 5 a month. So we have a twin and multiple loss group, and a grandparents group, a dad's group, and we also work with ARC, the Antenatal Results and Choices.
Yes.
So we're the first group in the whole of the UK to have a face-to-face opportunity. So we set that up about 4 years ago, I think now. So yeah, we're really pleased with how we've continued to be there, and we're certainly seeing that light now a bit brighter. Kind of I think able to now meet families face to face. So it's lovely to see families return, and we can't hug them yet, but we can sit with them, and you know, we can have our counselling sessions and our befriending. And indeed, we're having some events this week with the charity for Baby Loss Awareness Week, which it's all been taken away, hasn't it? And it's very noisy. I'm sure you'll see that, Sarah, on social media. It's very loud.
Yeah.
Busy and noisy, and so we've kind of broken through a lot of that, and we've given families, I think, 5 different opportunities to meet.
Yeah.
So yes,
so I will put this out as soon as I can, so I should get it out hopefully tomorrow. So towards the end of the week, I know you've got the lovely walk, Arthur Seat walk on Friday, and that's 6 p.m, isn't it? 7.
So we're meeting at 6:30, but obviously the wave of light is at 7. Yeah, unfortunately though, I think the event is now full. So if anyone's listening, we have a lot of families. We've got over 100 families coming, which is just incredible. But do you know, I think it speaks to us to tell us that people want to be with others. I think that's what we're really surprised by the numbers, but I think if I'm listening, it's like, I need to be with somebody else who understands. I need to be with others for this moment. So yeah, that will be a really moving event on Friday.
Absolutely. And you know, and I completely get that. That's one of the things that my husband and I found very helpful, being able to go to a monthly support group. And it's fantastic that you've been able to transfer all of that onto Zoom and keep all of those running. That's amazing to have that. And I can completely resonate with actually seeing real human beings being really quite special. So that event on Friday will be very special.
Yeah, just given that chance to just come together. And we met yesterday in Princess Street Gardens, so you'll maybe be aware of the lullaby, the big elephant that Andy Scott designed, and it's for the families of Morton Hall, but of course many families associate it with their baby, and perhaps many don't have a resting place. Some longer ago don't know where their baby is, or perhaps if you've chosen a shared cremation. So many go, and the little elephant's trunk is getting a bit rubbed now because she's just so full and fat, really. She's just beautiful, but she provides so much comfort. So we were there yesterday and just speaking to the community and just saying, do you know who she is? Do you know about the forget-me-not flowers embossed on her body? And do you know what she stands for? And it's just a lovely day. And we've been giving families the opportunity to plant a windmill up at Craiglockhart, where we're based. And we've got 221 names so far. So 221 windmills we're going to put out tomorrow. A big display so that we can...
So that's happening tomorrow, is it?
Yeah, so we have an open day on Thursday up at Craiglockhart, and that's still available for anybody to come to. But families can drop in between 11 and 3. We've got a coffee van and some treats for families. We're going to sit safely in a little canopied area so we can sit outside, keeps COVID safe. And allow them to plant their own windmill in amongst. So I don't know how many we'll have by the end of the week. But certainly we've got 221 just now. So yeah, that'll be lovely to see them all turning, because of course, as you know, Sarah, your love continues to grow and life continues to go on, and I think the windmill really represents that. It's ever turning, and of course there's always that hope that energy of the windmill turning is symbolic of someone being close to you. It's like everyone's interpretation is very different, but even when I was filming it, I wanted to do a little film to show families, and I planted it in the ground, and as soon as I planted it, it started pouring really fast, and I was like, you just
Oh,
just
so
trying to tell me, it's like, I'm here, my energy's here I am. Like, just to let something speak to you like that is powerful, isn't it?
So if people want to get involved or come to the open day on Thursday, do they have to register, and then do they do the windmill there?
Yeah, no, they don't have to register. You can just turn up on Thursday. And the only thing is we have stipulated no children. It's always a difficult thing for us to do, but I'm sure you'll also appreciate this as a bereaved mum, where our frontline services for those that are bereaved, newly bereaved, it's that reaching at a time when you're broken. And yes, many families have already got children or go on to have children. So this year we've decided to give the opportunity of the drop-in, which is really safe. It's in the place where we are held. That families know they can come there and not have to worry about somebody being pregnant or a brand new baby crying. We felt that was the right thing to do, and we understand that for some that might be difficult because they may have a baby or a child that they can't get childcare for. We absolutely get that, and that's why on the Wave of Light it's a family event, and we feel that that's a good balance. You're never able to get it always right, but families can turn up on Thursday safely knowing it's just adults there. They can sit with, our befrienders will be there, they can sit and have a chat and can maybe meet with others, and then they can plant the windmill. We'll have plenty of windmills there for them to plant. So yeah,
that's beautiful.
Some people there. It's just trying to do as much as we can during this week, because last year particularly, and you will experience this, because it was so well done in COVID and we were quite isolated, it kind of just felt like quite overwhelming online, like just more and more stories and loss. And actually that's great, because it's like a week to get that voice and to raise that unique loss in our lives. But actually we felt there was this, but how is everybody? How are you doing behind all that? Because it's always at the heart of everything we do as families. That is our core role as a charity is about the families. We don't do other elements like research. It's about making sure the bereavement care is as good as it can be. So I'm pleased this year. It feels like it would at least been able to see some faces.
Yeah, that's so great. And I'll make sure that I'll get the links off you to put all of those links so that people can key into those events and into your organization. If they're local, I know you cover a particular area, so if you can just let us know where you cover in terms of your bereavement services. And I know that you will, if people aren't within that area and they get in touch, I'm sure you'll be able to signpost them to somewhere near them where they can get support if they don't fall within your area.
Yeah, I think that's what's really important, is I don't think we can one size fits all, and I don't think any organisation can say we do it all, and we're definitely not one to say that. And the Lothians have been around for 40 years, so we have our connections, and we're the only Babyloss charity in the Lothians to provide face-to-face support. So we know those families well. And we work with SANS in Fife and Forth Valley to provide our counselling. So the groups there will provide the befriending, and we'll provide the counselling if it feels like there's maybe more of a need for that. And we've actually just launched yesterday our relationship with NHS Highlands. So we heard from a number of families, sadly, in COVID, who were incredibly isolated. And indeed, in particular, a lady who tried to take her own life, and we found it hard to find support. And it really made us go, it's a large area. We've got enough experience now online, and we'll have some, befrienders and counsellors up in that area. But we know we can't do it all in person. That's the difference. We do it here in person and
yes.
But I think it's just.
And I suppose that's one of the gifts of COVID.
Yeah.
Having to take services online, it then opens it up. Actually,
I know. Who would have thought that? I mean, we'd considered it before, because at conferences we'd often have midwives from the Highlands say, "Oh, I wish we had something like this up north. This would be amazing." And of course, we would always be like, "Oh, I wish we had as well." What can we do? I think there was a worry that would we really be able to support families via counselling online, and all the counsellors felt the same. That actually, yeah, we've started and finished now with families, which again, where we thought maybe we'd just be holding people, but actually we haven't. They've worked really hard through their grief to the point that they have come to that conclusion that then that support has helped them and they feel better placed. There's always grief, isn't there, and they're always with us, but you know, in a place that they can manage that and live with, essentially. So yeah, we've been really encouraged, and we hope we can do the same for families up north. But just as you said, Sarah, of course, if somebody was to reach out, we're not up for, oh, we don't do that. It's not a word we ever, or a language we ever use. It's like, well, let's have a little look and see if we can find you support. Let's have, we all have that duty of care, I think, you know, it's our ethos is to connect and say, well, let's try and find where can help. And it's good to work together. It's you know, I think there's a proverb, isn't it? Like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that's wonderful for Babyloss, because, you know, we can do so much better when we're collaborating and making sure, you know, that person who's just newly bereaved or just absolutely broken at the time gets the right support.
It's huge, and such a vital role that your organization plays and service that you provide.
Thank you.
So I feel like we've kind of come to a natural conclusion with our conversation. It's really great to hear what you have available, the services that are available here in, you know, I'm in Edinburgh as well. So I'm just quite close to Craiglockett, actually. So
wonderful. Well, we'll need to meet them. I'll need to not do a virtual, we'll do a coffee in person then, won't we? We'll make sure that happens.
I'll pop down on Thursday, and because I'd love to do a windmill. I think that'd be lovely.
Oh, I would love to see you. That would be nice to think that we can follow this conversation on.
Amazing.
So thank you for sharing Gwenna with me. I really appreciate you sharing your son today, and thanks for the opportunity. It's great to chat to you.
Yeah, really great to chat with you too, and it's fantastic what you're doing here and what you've achieved over the years, in honor of your son as well. So so beautiful.
Thank you. That's really kind of you to say.